Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Driven Wyld. Today we are talking about Louis Rossmann cancels Doordash driver for losing it after getting $0 tip. I know I'm really behind the ball on this video 7 months ago or something like that, but I saw a clip of Pedro Doordash Santiago reacting to it on another TikToker's video, so I kind of wanted to see what he was reacting to, and of course give my very loudmouth opinions on it. So with that said, I want to go over everything that Louis Rossmann is saying about Doordash and this gig worker, what he's saying versus how it actually is, and everything in between. So with that said, let's get started.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope you're having a lovely day. Today I'd like to go over a video that showed up in Reddit, a Doordash driver that threw a fit after not receiving a tip. I'm going to be going over this from the perspective as a business owner. For those of you who are not familiar with this channel, I have not had a real job for probably like 15 years of my life. It was very difficult for me to find a real job, so I wound up starting my own business and working out of the park when I was broke, and then I slowly built that very slowly into the store that I have now with 6 employees. So I'm a little bit out of touch on the employee's perspective. I'm really going to be looking at this as a business owner.
Before we even go too far into this, I do want to be clear, he's making it sound like we're employees, so he's already out of touch for what a gig worker actually is. We're independent contractors. We have the ability to say yes or no to everything that comes our way. And he's making it sound like he's a business owner and we are not in business for ourselves, period. That kind of narrative, I'm already concerned with how he is as a person. Take everything he is going to say with a grain of salt because it's probably factually inaccurate.
So let's watch the video and go over it from there. So he says, "This is effing ridiculous, dude." He puts the food down and he proceeds to call the customer. And he knocked on the door very angrily.
Hi, it's saying 0 for the tip. Was there a cash tip?
He asked if there was a tip, and then he gets hung up on. He says effing loser, and the guy walks away.
Okay, so before we even talk about Mr. Rossmann's reaction, we do need to address the bigger issue here. He was 100% wrong. Even if he didn't totally acknowledge the idea that he was taking a picture for the order itself, so that way he is totally covered for the contactless delivery. The point is that it was a contactless delivery. Number one. Number two, if you're gonna take a no-tip order, that's your own damn fault. You shouldn't be taking no-tip orders to begin with. And third, and probably more importantly than all of that, this is exactly why Doordash drivers get the bad rap that we do. It doesn't matter if they have a cash tip or not. You agree to the terms of the order by accepting it when you had every opportunity to decline it, which you absolutely should have. That's your own fault. You made that choice. And I'm 92% sure when I saw this go viral online, the guy got deactivated, so that's already addressed right off the bat.
So there are a number of ways to go over this. The first thing that is aggravating to me above all else is that this man is mad at the customer rather than being mad at his employer.
He's already making it sound like we're employees, so everything that he is going to say is going to come from the idea that he doesn't understand what we do or who we are, and everything he's going to say is going to come from that narrative. And second, probably just as important, the way he's making it sound is that we don't have any negative feelings towards the people that have contracted to us. We always called out Doordash, but they're gaslighting us as if we should be okay with them abusing us because they're abusing us as well. Like, what kind of dumbass logic is that?
Why are you getting mad at me for not tipping? Why don't you get mad at your employer?
Just because they're doing something just as bad doesn't justify you doing a bad thing.
I have nothing wrong with him being mad at the fact that he believes his value is here and that the value he's actually receiving is here. I have no problem with people expressing that emotion. I'm not criticizing him for having it.
If it was one of his employees, he would have every problem with that. Guaranteed. He'll probably name one-off scenario that probably was him treating his own employees in a positive way, and then the other employees that he has is probably gonna feel just as bitter.
I'm simply saying that he should have that emotion towards the employer who is creating the economic model, setting the prices for the goods, setting the price for delivery, and then setting the salary that he pays the delivery person, rather than being mad at the customer.
Salary, again, total moron, doesn't understand we're independent contractors. And yes, we've asked for a higher base pay multiple times, but the fact is that they're not. That doesn't mean we don't aim to pay our own bills. Seriously, this guy is just the north side of stupid here.
Now, yes, it is true that at the end of the day, the customer is the one that's actually paying you. Your employer is simply a middleman, but your employer is the one that is directly responsible for creating the economic model, setting the prices, and so on and so forth.
Employer, this guy's a moron.
He's wrong about so many things.
If you are not receiving an amount of money that is proper for you, you need to walk into your employer's office and have a conversation about that with your employer.
Walk into your employer's office. You see, this guy is just the most defective failure here. There is no office. What do you think we're gonna do? We're gonna fly to San Francisco and knock on Tony's door? That doesn't work that way. No wonder why he feels out of touch. He doesn't even know how business models fucking work. How can you call yourself a business owner? Oh wait, you're gaslighting. You don't tip either. You're a piece of crap, so you want to justify you being a piece of crap by pointing at the drivers to point at DoorDash as opposed to having it look bad on yourself, because that's the kind of piece of crap you are. That's what I thought.
The customer is not the party that has anything to do with it. This is like if you are not getting enough sex from your spouse, so you go to your spouse's employer and talk to them. It's like, this is a negotiation to be had with your spouse and nobody but your spouse.
That is the stupidest logic I have ever heard. The relationship between people who have committed their lives with each other and the relationship between a customer and a driver are two different worlds. Talk about being out of touch. You're not even in the game. There's nothing going on in his head. He's probably just as abusive to his spouse, by the way. But based on the way he's this abusive to the people around him, he probably doesn't tip himself. He's probably justifies everything bad that he does to everyone else by narcissistically calling out other people. And that's just the kind of piss poor integrity and character that this failure operates upon. It's just who he is.
Here, if you're not being compensated enough as an employee, this is a problem between you and your boss and nobody else. And the wool that tipping culture is pulled over everybody's eyes is it causes employees to be mad at the customer rather than be mad at their boss. I have nothing wrong with you being mad because you think you're not getting enough money.
Until it's your employee. And then you're going to abuse them to finding a reason to not pay them more. That's just who you are at this point. I can literally feel the abusive nature of this person just by the video that is being displayed here. I'm concerned for the safety of his family.
Go to your boss, ask them for more money. Have a conversation. Try to negotiate how to get more money. Ask them, what can I do? What can I do to provide enough value to you that you are open to providing me with $3 extra an hour?
This is exactly the point. He doesn't even know what we do. He doesn't even know how we operate. He is a special needs case if I've ever seen one. Like, if you're going to commentate about how a DoorDash driver is, at least understand what we do and who we are. Don't pretend as if you have any idea of what we do if you don't even want to do a basic ounce of research to make sure that anything you say is factually accurate. The way he operates makes low-functioning autistic people look like Ivy League students. That is how stupid this guy is.
Can you tell me what it is that I would have to do for you? What sales targets I'd have to hit? How fast I'd have to make deliveries? What can I do to help you around here with things in general to be worth that additional $3 an hour? And if they tell you, here's what you do, now you know. If they tell you there's nothing you could ever do to us to be worth more value, now you know your boss doesn't value you and that you should be mad at them, not the customer.
You should be mad at them and not the customer. Forget the fact that you still need to pay your bills. You should be mad at them and not the customer, and continue to accept the abuse on both sides and not have actual boundaries and standards for yourself. That is the piss poor integrity and character of the Rossmann legacy.
When it comes to tipping culture in general, tipping culture does have a place in society. Like, for instance, if I go to my mechanic, I'm just expecting to have some $500 or $1,000 bill because I went over a pothole or something and I hear some clanging and he says, oh yeah, I just tightened this nut or this bolt that was like a little loose. Don't worry about it. Don't pay me. He's leaving with $100 of cash in his pocket. No way in hell am I going to leave that situation where I was expecting to pay $800 and I'm paying $0 and he did work using his expertise without getting money. There, tipping culture, great thing. I'm happily giving him $100 or hiding it somewhere in the garage if he doesn't accept it because he, in my opinion, he deserved it. That's value for value right there.
That is too two different worlds of scenarios there. Like, that is not even close to a comparable business model. Like, what kind of dumbass logic is that? So basically, people only deserve a tip when they take a $500 to $1,000 loss, is basically what I just heard. Forget the driver who has used their own gas and own driving and their own vehicle to deliver your food. That person doesn't deserve a tip. Just the guy who lost $1,000 that day. That is the dumbest logic.
This whole thing where like you're required to leave a tip, as in somebody comes to my business, I tell them it's going to be $200 for this repair. They pay the $200 and my employee gets mad at them because they actually pay what they asked for.
Again, it's not a comparable business model.
This is BS. And like, this is something that really does kind of have to go away. And one of the fastest ways to make this shit go away is to make sure that people's anger is directed where it belongs, which is at the employer.
Until it's you. And don't make it sound like we're not angry with DoorDash at all. We have literally stated multiple times that base pay needs to be higher, but that doesn't change the fact that we need to have our bills paid. I can literally see this man narcissistically berating his own employees, trying to pretend as if they're justified into paying them as little as they do. Forget the hard work and sweat that you would never be able to replace otherwise, especially in this day and age where it's really hard to get people into the trades. Like, I cannot imagine Louis Rossmann having a business that is actually anything short an abusive business model to work with. It's just who he is. It's the piss poor integrity and character that is the failure of the Rossmann legacy.
The customer should be mad at the employer of the business, not the employee for demanding a tip, and the employee should be mad at the employer for not paying them enough, not the customer for not leaving a tip. Both parties involved in the transaction, the customer and the employee, need to stop fighting each other and take that anger and aggravation they have and focus it where it needs to be focused, the employer. Make them responsible and accountable to come up with a business model that works.
Until it's you.
The next thing I'd like to go into in this video is the fact that I think this person knew that they were probably doing something wrong within this particular value system that we have, and I just would want to go over what I would do in a similar situation here. So at this point in the video where he hangs up, so the guy says like, is there a tip? Clicked on him. It doesn't say, well, I actually paid $30 for the food, which I think is fair given what I bought and the fact that I'm 3 blocks away. If you believe that that is not enough money, I think you should go to your employer and ask for more money rather than be mad at me. Rather than actually explain himself, the customer just hung up, which I think is kind of lame.
No, because this is exactly the point. You know, this guy has never had a conversation about DoorDash, has never had a conversation about UberEats or anything like that, because he knows exactly what he did. He knows we're independent contractors and we do not need to actually accept their order. He knows that he made it a contactless delivery, so the social pressure is removed from him. He knows that he was just being abusive to the driver overall, and you know it, or you're choosing ignorance because that's the piss poor integrity and character that is Louis Rossmann.
This comes from Jim Camstar with Notes at the end of the book. I don't want to spoil the book, but he's talking about a conversation that his father had with a contractor. He moved, contractor did some work for him, and the contractor asked him once the work is done, hey, what do you think? Was this a good job? How'd it go? And he's like, oh man, you did a really amazing job. Thank you so much. And then instead of just letting that be the end of it, the person who hired the contractor says, how about you? How'd you make out in this deal? Do you think it was fair? How was your experience of the project? And the contractor was taken aback, like, wow, you actually care how my experience was. And he goes, well, I'll be honest with you, here's what I miscalculated. I screwed up, so I kind of lost some money in this deal. It was kind of a wash for me. The person who hired the contractor says, man, I'm sorry to hear that. Would $400 make up for your loss and also allow you fair profit for your time today? And the guy was absolutely stunned because nobody does this. And he's like, well, yeah, that would. And they wound up having a lifetime of having a positive working relationship together. He was a person that was used to asking for value, and he had no problem asking for value when he was providing value. But the reason he felt empowered to do that is every single time that he was receiving value from somebody else, he made sure to pay for that in return. And if he was even had a teeny tiny bit of doubt that what he paid was lower than the amount of value that he received, he made sure to pay that back.
Within the point of the story, you said the problem with that logic. Nobody does that. That is so infrequent that happens that it is irresponsible to depend on that, especially with how the discrimination against gig workers has always been the case. Have you ever wondered why food delivery takes so so long sometimes. It's not simply because of the driver. It's the food service workers that have something against the driver. It's when your order is put on the back burner because clearly the orders that you're receiving that we're going to deliver clearly don't need to be prioritized. Now, again, that driver should have said no. This is not to justify the independent contractor's behavior. He was 100% wrong, but it's exactly his actions that bring out people like this who think they know what they're talking about and literally have no fracking clue.
And this is something that I've done myself. So for instance, there's a restaurant around here, Texas Roadhouse. Again, you can laugh at me for liking Texas Roadhouse. Yes, you're allowed to laugh. There's something particular about the salad there that I like. I don't know what it is. It's obviously clear. It's fast food, but there's something about this steak salad that I like. So I go there from time to time. When I go there, I would ask some of the people that are behind the counter. I'm just like, I like to ask questions about business. I mean, anywhere I go, I try to be friendly with people. And I said, I'm curious. Do they pay well here? And they laughed, and I asked how much they paid. And then I'm like, oh my God. It was like horrifically low. It was less than what I made at my internship at Avatar Studios 15 years ago, which is... It should tell you everything. Every time I go there, I typically give them a tip of $10 to $20.
Tipping culture is okay for servers, but not food delivery drivers. Like, what kind of stupid nonsense is that? It's suddenly okay that the servers are being underpaid and you're tipping them for that. But on the flip side of that, if a food delivery worker who is an independent contractor expects to be compensated properly, it's suddenly an issue for you. The double standard here is unfreaking real. Even the cat doesn't think you're intelligent enough to be on the internet.
Now, this may seem insane, but to me, the way I see it, I have two choices. Behind door number one, the people who work there are not being provided with the amount of value that they are providing me. It's my responsibility to fill in the gap. Behind door number two, I can realize that every time I go here, I receive more value than I am giving them. Therefore, I will just stop going there because the people who are providing me with what I want are not being compensated properly. So I am not going to take part in that business relationship anymore. I'm not going to go there and say, well, I'm not tipping because I shouldn't have to. I'm simply not going to go there because I realize that the person behind the counter that's actually doing the work is getting paid $2 or $3 an hour, which is bullshit. I'm just not going to go there. Those are the two acceptable options for me.
Actually speaking, that is probably one of the most intelligent things that has come out of his mouth. If you don't like how something works, you don't participate. It's really that simple. Or you maintain the relationship and tip properly. It's one or the other. Now, is $10 or $20 for a salad a little much? Depends on how much the salad is. But again, that's his prerogative. To be as clear as possible, he does tip his servers well, from what I could tell. I don't know how much he's ordering. I don't know if he's getting like a smorgasbord or something. That's a different conversation. But so far, it sounds like he's getting a salad and maybe an entree. So he's tipping well. But at the same time, it's not okay to tip drivers because you don't understand their business model. Why are you interested in a server's business model, but you're not interested in how the DoorDash driver's business model actually works? Like, where is the line there? Where is the disconnect here? Because I feel like if we're gonna have that conversation, we should have that conversation. I feel like there's a huge double standard taking place here.
It is not an acceptable option for me to show up and say, I am going to pay what you asked, but I am not going to tip, because I know, even though technically I'm allowed to do that, I know the person that is providing me with that value, that is providing me with that food that I like for whatever effed up reason in my head that I like Texas Roadhouse and my bad taste was that I like that stuff. I know that they're getting paid shit. And once I have that knowledge that person's getting like $2 or $3 an hour, I can't enjoy what I'm getting. So I leave a tip between $10 and $20 every time I go there. You may think that's ridiculous, and perhaps it is. Perhaps I should not eat out at the frequency that I do when I go to that particular restaurant. But when I go there, that's usually what I leave because I think that is fair. Even if I'm sitting at the bar and literally just buying myself a salad, I can't live with the idea that I am receiving value from people and not providing value in return to them. This is not because I am a goody two-shoes. This is not because I'm a good or altruistic person. As I've mentioned in many of my videos, I'm a giant piece of shit. Don't admire me. Don't look up to me. I do this because by doing this, it empowers me to ask for value when I know I'm providing it.
Now, I don't know if he's treating drivers the same way. I don't even think he is even using the food delivery apps. Based on the way he's expressing himself, I don't think he has. But nevertheless,
when I first started this business 15 years ago, I was very timid. I wasn't very good at asking asking for the amount of value that I knew I was providing. I would often underbid my services, and I would make sure that I was not just the cheapest person, but I was the cheapest person by a margin of 20 to 40%. I needed to be the cheapest person. And what happened as a result of me doing that, I could not afford to hire an assistant. I couldn't afford a proper office. I couldn't afford any of the help that I needed or the tools that I needed to be able to do a better job. And as a result of that, I eventually started to underserve my customers. I was actually doing worse work because I was underbidding not just the job, but myself by such a high amount of money. And it was a confidence problem. It was a value problem. And one of the things that really helped me ask for the value that I knew that I was worth, even when I was no longer the cheapest service, and have no shame anytime somebody went, well, that place is $20 cheaper, I'm going to go there. Instead of me going, okay, sir, I'll lower my price because I know I'm not worth it. It empowered me to go, well, gargle my balls, go over there, let them fuck up your shit. I don't care.
I was similar in a way that my ability to enforce my boundaries was very limited, and I was timid by nature, and I was working with very narcissistic people at the time. My self-image was so low that I needed to work my ass off just to feel like I'm worth more than what I'm working for. And then I had to work my ass off to compensate for the lack of effort that my other partners were working on. Eventually, I ended up leaving that, and eventually I ended up moving to Florida entirely. But I definitely get how someone would need some sort of catalyst to go from super timid and can't stand up for himself and what he feels his value is, to moving on to being able to stand up for what you feel is right, even if somebody decides to treat you poorly otherwise. That's why I am a firm believer of standing up for yourself, having a proper boundary set for yourself, whether it's for food delivery or any other gig you decide to take for yourself. Whether you need the catalyst, such as tipping more so that way you have ability to ask, whether it's setting a specific rate for your work, or whether it's just not accepting crap for the sake of accepting crap. And I feel like a lot of people who have accepted a lot of no-tip orders feel as if they have to because that's just what they've been taught their whole life. And if you need that extra catalyst to be like, no, I believe I'm worth more than that, and I'm willing to walk away from a deal than accept a bad one. That's what it takes. That's the difference between a business owner mindset and an employee mindset. An employee has to take whatever and just be okay with it. A business owner has to set their own rates to something that actually is going to be worth it for them at the end of the day. Now, there's also the point that there are more ways to gain that level of self-respect, but that's for a different video.
What allows me to unload and just not feel bad in any way, shape, or form when somebody says that I should be billing them only $200 for a hard drive that is clicking, that has platter damage and stuff like that, is realizing that anytime I'm receiving value in my life, that I provide that value in return. As a result, I feel empowered and confident to say, this is what our price is for this service. We are already 10 to 20% the price that a place like Drive Savers is going to charge you. We are much cheaper than these people. We have a much better success rate than these people. I know exactly how much time Steve and Chris and Orhan have spent teaching themselves this skill and perfecting this skill. I know how much money I've spent on tools for this skill. This is what we are worth. And the reason that I feel empowered to ask what we are worth is because I am always ensuring that I am providing other people what they are worth.
Like I said, that's not going to work for everybody because I feel like everyone is built different. But if that's what you need to do, there are ways that you could definitely apply this. Whether it's you go to a bar and you make sure you're tipping the bartender or tipping your servers or otherwise. Or maybe the concept of you providing value to your employees is not a value to you at all. Why do you think that most companies don't actually pay their people properly? But if that's the case, you got to find a way to build up your self-image, build up your self-respect, to set proper boundaries for yourself that is based on the market that you're in, and find a way to earn money that is more fitting for what you are worth.
It's not about altruism. It's about empowering yourself to be the best version of yourself and to value yourself in a way that you're not going to value yourself if you're not valuing others. How can you expect to ask people for value in exchange for the value you provide if you're not willing to provide them with the value that they provide?
That's, again, the difference between an employee and an independent contractor. The expectations for an independent contractor are totally different than that of an employee, and they know it. That's why we are paid for the work we do, not the time we put in. We already knew coming into this that he doesn't understand the business model, and he probably did less than no research on this subject. But he's not necessarily wrong about the concept concept of making sure you're being paid properly based on whatever apps you're working on. Or maybe you're ready to set up your own gig that is outside of food delivery. Make sure you're setting your rate accordingly that way.
What empowered me to ask for the value that I knew I was worth was that in every single scenario where I was receiving value from somebody else, I made sure to provide them that value back. If I'm ordering food and I'm paying like $9 for the food, it's like 5 miles away and there's no delivery fee, I'm not stupid. I know that something there is not right. I know this is too good to be true. I know somebody has to be getting fucked. For me to do that and leave no tip. And then when the guy says, hey, by the way, saw you put cash tip, is there a tip?
Again, you could tell that this guy has no idea how DoorDash or anything like that works. DoorDash has already got a butt ton of upcharges, and none of that goes to the driver. The way the business model works is you're paid for the work you do, not for the time you put in. And we are independent contractors, not employees. And the way orders hit our accounts are base pay plus promo pay plus tips equals whatever the value is. And if we see that the order is not equivalent to the value we are actually putting in, we are not going to accept it. In this case, the driver accepted it. And again, he is 100% wrong for accepting it because these conversations tend to take place even 7 months later.
To not even explain the rationality behind it. They just hang up on the person. I think that's kind of shitty. To be clear, the employer in this situation is way worse than the person hanging up the phone.
Honestly, in my opinion, everyone sucks here. The customer for choosing not to tip their driver, claiming that there's going to be a cash tip after, and choosing not to tip cash. DoorDash for choosing to not provide an actual base pay for all parties involved, and all of us are upset about that. And the driver for condoning the behavior in the first place by not hitting that decline button.
I have a very value for value like mentality. I don't mind paying when I receive value, even if I have the ability to get it cheaply or for free. And it's not because I'm rich or anything like that. It's because it actually changes the way my brain works. It allows me to advocate for myself in a way that I was unable to advocate for myself before.
You know, I'm starting to wonder if that's why a lot of richer people like to spend money on expensive things. Do people need to do that just to be able to justify in their mind what they're doing and how much they're worth?
If you are the employee in this type of relationship, make sure you have a conversation with your employer. Don't think that you can just get away with doing a crappier job and that's fine. Because at the end of the day, the person on camera acting like this is you. The person's face in the camera is not your employer, it's you. You're lowering your personal standard of conduct. You're lowering your dignity. You're upping your blood pressure and your pulse getting mad over all this stuff because your employer sucks. If you are willing to work to a lower standard like this because you did not negotiate a proper wage for yourself.
Again, this literally proves that he has no idea how DoorDash actually works or any of the gig apps actually work. If you're going to make commentary on the gig economy, I think it is vital important that you actually know what the gig economy is all about, especially if you're talking about food delivery, because there is so many misconceptions about what took place here. And the driver was 100% wrong. Don't get me wrong. They are 100% wrong for not only themselves, but the DoorDash community as far as the drivers, the customer, for condoning his behavior, let alone the way he treated them. And for DoorDash, because now when people think of DoorDash, they think of Dashers, and this is the endless cycle that we get put into.
Again, it's one of those things where you either have to accept what it is that you're getting or not accept it and walk away. But to not accept it and kind of stay in the situation, it's kind of like staying in a relationship where your boundaries are constantly being crossed. Eventually, you're going to say or do something you're not supposed to do, and then you'll be the asshole, and then you'll regret it because everybody else is going to look at you like you're the asshole, when in reality, you aren't the asshole. You just let your boundaries get crossed, and then you allowed yourself to devolve into something that you never imagined yourself being.
And that's exactly why I am a firm believer in having a diversified gig portfolio and treating the gig economy as an income bridge to what would be a long-term goal, not the goal. Because you don't get emotional about this stuff when you're making sure you're only taking quality orders. You don't get emotional about this stuff when you have other apps that are feeding you and providing orders to you that way. You're not upset about this when you have other apps that you're working on, or you're working on your own gig or your own service that you're providing to other people. And you're definitely not feeling that way if this is just a temporary situation that you know you are putting your free time towards, so that way you are maximizing the actual value of the work you're doing.
Same thing in a working relationship. Me personally, when I was ordering food from restaurants like this, I would never tip up front, because if you leave the tip up front, they don't have to care how slow they are in delivering your food.
That is a misconception about gig workers. While pre-tipping doesn't necessarily increase the quality, there are important factors that have literally proven to actually help drivers. Gig workers want your order on their app and off their app as quickly as possible. Number two, just because the order isn't getting to you quickly, that doesn't mean that that's the fault of the driver. Like I said before, there's a huge discrimination against gig workers from food service workers specifically. I was doing an order for Chipotle, right? And the order for Chipotle was done. They had it behind the counter. And then everybody who was there refused to actually just pack it up and have me deliver it. And I was like, hey, I'm picking up for so-and-so.
Are you picking it up for yourself or for a delivery?
I'm picking it up for Uber Eats. What difference does it make? He literally just walked away. And then the old lady that was working there as well, that was cleaning up the tables, came from the front of the store to the counter just to pack it up. And he was just standing there like this. And then from the door frame, he kind of gave a quick jog like,
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was gonna pack that, I swear.
we all knew what you were doing. And is that the kind of piss poor integrity and character that is a fault of the driver? No. I was just trying to pick it up and leave. I promise you, I don't want your food in my car for longer than it has to be in there. But if that is exactly what's being done to the drivers, that's not the fault of the driver, even if they are the ones receiving the blame.
I would always leave a 0% tip, but then I would put in the notes, cash, please knock on door, 4th floor.
A lot of people who say they do that either are saying that to maintain an image rather than tell the truth. I honestly believe that either he is saying things to either maintain an image rather than tell the truth, or he's choosing not to acknowledge the business model as a whole. This seems like a narcissistic, abusive move entirely. He's playing stupid, refusing to acknowledge what actually happens as a food delivery driver, and trying to not accept any of the blame for himself.
I'm a giant piece of shit. Don't admire me. Don't look up to me. This does two things. A, it lets you know that I intend to tip, but you're not going to know what you're getting unless you actually show up. B, that I expect you to walk up the 4 flights of stairs to get to my apartment, not leave the food downstairs, and this was very effective.
He's lying straight through his teeth. Every gig worker knows for a fact that there are no cash tips when there's no tip up front. And everyone also knows that's also the guy at the top of the building that is going to have the most unreasonable expectations and provide the lowest value. It's just a fact.
I'm a giant piece of shit. Don't admire me. Don't look up to me. Before that, if I left a tip, regardless of how good the tip was, it would sometimes take an hour and a half for me to get the food. It could be cold. You may just leave it downstairs instead of walking it up.
An hour and a half. That's because everyone in your area was declining it because they know better. And until the base pay increased to an amount that was acceptable for DoorDash to actually have a driver deliver it, that's how long your food was waiting. You were being punished for being a no-tip customer.
No, I said I tip in cash after service.
Yeah, you're lying. You always have lied and you always will lie.
I'm a giant piece of shit. Don't admire me. Don't look up to me. Once I started actually saying this was very helpful because the food would show up in 10 or 15 minutes. They would actually walk it upstairs. And when they did, I would leave them $10 cash. Every single time you walk the food up to my apartment, here's $10. Thank you for doing that. Even if I was ordering a $9 burrito, here's a $10 tip.
This is a load of crap and he knows it.
I'm a giant piece of shit. Don't admire me. Don't look up to me. Now, if you left the food downstairs and just sent a message, food is downstairs, you didn't get shit. But that was the way that I used to do it. And 99% of the time, they would actually show up and do that.
You sit on a throne of lies.
I understand why people do not leave a tip when they're using these apps. If anything, I encourage you to use cash tips rather than actually leaving it ahead of time.
Then you're not getting your food. It's that simple. You should not get your food in that case. He is acting like this is actually helpful, but in reality, it's a load of lies. He is choosing to lie to everyone. Don't ever change your standards for the piss poor integrity and character of any no-tip customer. And he is a no-tip customer. I guarantee it.
I'm a giant piece of shit. Don't admire me. Don't look up to me. Because if you've tipped ahead of time, then well, what's the incentive structure for them to do a good job or to provide you with good service?
What's the incentive structure for us to accept your order? Zero, just like your tip.
Most of the time when you're using these apps, it's not even the same person that's going to be delivering every single time.
Because it's not the same person that's going to be delivering it every single time, there is no reason to maintain a business relationship, because if that were the case, abusing him would actually make him think about it. But because he will never see that driver again, it's totally okay to take an abusive approach. It's all about his image. It's not about the truth.
I'm a giant piece of shit. Don't admire me. Don't look up to me. So it's kind of one of those things like you're tipping a random cab driver where like they're never going to see you again. So if you're tipping up front rather than after, it doesn't really make as much sense for them to offer you good service. So by all means, if you're going to be dealing with the tipping culture, I highly suggest that you structure it in a manner where the person giving you service is incentivized to give you good service.
This guy is just all sorts of special needs, man. Holy crap. You have no actual idea of how the business model works. You refuse to understand how the business model works. You would rather sea lion and choose abusive tactics to actually justify your abusive behavior, even though in reality, it's all just to maintain image rather than tell the truth. And I am concerned for the people that work with you and the people that live with you because of your abusive nature. By the way, I actually went on Indeed to look up his business, Rossmann Repair Group. Horrible culture, but overall a fun experience. Friendly, but if you have a complaint, it becomes your personal problem. People will throw you under the bus unless they like you.
Well, I sure hope somebody picks up that phone.
Do what?
Because I f***ing called it!
Literally exactly what I was saying. An abusive person by nature would rather maintain image than tell the truth, because that's the piss poor integrity and character that is Louis Rossmann. Now, again, I do want to be clear, he does make some pretty good points, and I also want to be clear that the driver was 100% wrong. The customer chose an abusive path, but the driver should have declined the order outright, and none of this would have happened, because that's exactly what goes viral anyway. But here's another reason you don't take a no-tip customer. He chose an abusive method of operation. He chose to blame the one driver. He says he doesn't even know if he'll ever see him again, and he is totally fine with that. I honestly believe it would be irresponsible to prioritize your time for anybody who doesn't pre-tip on the app, because these are the kind of people you end up working with.
I'm a giant piece of shit. Don't admire me. Don't look up to me.
All in all, just do yourself a favor. Keep it to no tip, no trip. Not no tip, take the order anyway and expect a cash tip. Not no tip, believe customers that actually claim that they're gonna tip cash. Not no tip, begrudgingly do the order anyway. No tip, no trip. It's that simple. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.